Bom dia, queria dar as boas-vindas a todos para dar início a essa nossa conversa, agradecendo a presença de todo mundo nesse domingo de manhã, de um dia maravilhoso aqui no Rio de Janeiro. Então, muito obrigado por todos por estarem aqui conosco. Eu sou o Ronaldo Lemos, eu sou diretor do Centro de Tecnologia e Sociedade da Fundação Getúlio Vargas, é um centro de pesquisa avançada sobre a questão da tecnologia e o seu impacto na sociedade. Eu vou ser o moderador dessa mesa de conversas e eu gostaria de começar chamando os nossos convidados para compor essa nossa mesa de debates. Eu vou usar o português o tempo todo, então nossos convidados são dois americanos, mas hoje a gente vai prezar pela língua portuguesa, então quem precisar que use as traduções. Vou começar chamando ela, que é diretora executiva da Sunlight Foundation. Ela é uma ativista política americana com extensa atuação nos campos da relação entre política, especialmente no financiamento político. A Sunlight Foundation hoje é um paradigma para a questão de tecnologia e transparência. Então, por favor, me ajudem a receber a Ellen Miller. Segundo lugar, eu acho que é uma pessoa que dispensa apresentações. Ele é engenheiro de software e de história e futuro da computação. Ele é cientista-chefe do César, que é o Centro de Estudos e Sistemas Avançados do Recife. É talvez um dos nossos founding fathers do pensamento sobre tecnologia e sociedade aqui no Brasil. Por favor, Silvio Meira. E, por fim, para se juntar a nós, eu queria chamar ele, que é o fundador da Fundação Peer-to-Peer, que é de par a par, ou de pessoa a pessoa. Ele coeditou um livro de 2 volumes sobre antropologia da sociedade digital e é um Research Fellow, um associado de pesquisa da Universidade de Amsterdã, especialista em ciências sociais e outros temas ligados à tecnologia. Então, por favor, Michel Bauwens. Eu vou começar só dizendo algumas palavras para dar início ao debate. E eu acho que, para muita gente, talvez a relação entre tecnologia e sustentabilidade não seja uma relação tão óbvia assim. A gente fala, mas o que tecnologia tem a ver com sustentabilidade? Eu acho que vai ficar bastante claro nesse debate hoje que uma das principais questões para se pensar a questão do futuro e de como é que a gente molda esse futuro para um mundo que está em crescimento populacional, que está exaurindo recursos, que está buscando formas alternativas de se pensar modos de vida, de compartilhar responsabilidades sobre a questão da sustentabilidade, é justamente pensar em como a inovação, a transparência e novas formas de governança que emergem, por exemplo, da colaboração entre pessoas, entre indivíduos, entre instituições, entre governos, que a tecnologia traz e permite transformar, tudo isso eu acredito que sejam fatores fundamentais para se pensar a questão da sustentabilidade. Então, o debate sobre o futuro e a economia do nosso desenvolvimento a partir de agora, ele passa necessariamente pela questão da tecnologia. Por isso eu acho que ter esses palestrantes e esses panelistas que a gente tem hoje é um privilégio, porque eu acho que é um início muito interessante de conversas que são efetivamente fundamentais para se pensar a questão da sustentabilidade. É isso que eu tinha para dizer, e eu acho que com isso eu dou início à nossa conversa aqui. E a primeira pergunta que eu gostaria de fazer para os nossos panelistas e que incentive a cada um deles para contar um pouco sobre a sua experiência de trabalho, sobre as suas organizações, seu pensamento, é exatamente a seguinte: qual é as tecnologias de colaboração ou tecnologias de transparência que são desenvolvidas no âmbito do trabalho de cada um de vocês? e como os empreendedores sociais, que eu acho que é um ponto crucial para essa conversa que a gente vai ter aqui hoje, podem aderir ou participar das iniciativas que vocês estão desenvolvendo. Então, vou pedir para a Ellen começar, depois a gente segue com a conversa.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. This is my first trip to Rio, but it will not be my last, I can tell you that. A little bit about myself. My name is Ellen Miller. I have been described by my longtime friend, colleague, and perhaps mentor, Bill Drayton, as a serial social entrepreneur. I founded 3 NGOs in the U.S., all of them focusing in different ways on the issue of the impact of political money and power in the United States. The Sunlight Foundation is the only institution I've created that is working globally, and all of my my organizations continue to exist and contribute to the debate in the United States about the influence of money in politics, a problem which I think the U.S. unfortunately excels in, but other countries have exactly the same kinds of issues, and perhaps even deeper ones because lack of disclosure. So the Sunlight Foundation was co-founded with myself and a gentleman named Michael Klein about 6 years ago to focus specifically on the use of technology as a tool for providing information to create more government openness and transparency, and to provide new tools and resources for all of us as social entrepreneurs, all of the citizens that we serve in the nonprofit sector, and citizens at large, the tens of millions of people who are now online in some fashion. We're committed to improving government information globally. In fact, redefining that public information means that it is online, and we are committed to improving the speed with which that information is made accessible. Our work falls into 5 categories. We digitize data or fund others to digitize data. We do reporting on data. We build tools and websites and mobile sites and mobile apps to make it easy to access information. And we do advocacy work because we realize that it is not the NGO sector's responsibility to provide government information to our citizens. It is actually the government's responsibility. We don't do this, we don't seek to free information for its own sake. We do it because we want it to have an impact on government and how government operates, on political influence and on activism and on engagement. So the notion of data being, open government data being a public good, we like that, we think that's true, but we really do it because we think that we can empower a data-driven democracy movement, and that's really at the heart of what we're doing. We remain insistent that the core goal of our transparency work is the notion of shifting power from the few people who have information to the many who do not, but who need it to empower themselves to demand answers to questions from their politicians. That's why we keep a large part of our attention focusing on opening up the political process and the political arena. Our most innovative initiatives, this is very difficult for me, because Sunlight is constantly producing tools and websites. We're trying to figure out very experimentally what works, what catches on, and what doesn't. So I'm going to show you a few of these very quickly. And Marcio, if you're operating the slides, let's look at something called opencongress.org. This is a PMO, is known globally as a PMO. It's up there. This is one of the first PMOs, Parliamentary Monitoring Organizations. This is a joint site between the Sunlight Foundation and a small NGO called the Participatory Politics Foundation. This takes the stuff of our national legislature and makes it the stuff of the internet. So anyone can follow proposed legislation, news about a bill, discover what other people are interested in, make friends with people who are interested, and write correspondence, email correspondence to members of our Congress. This is one of our most successful sites. We have 500,000 visitors every single month, and this is pretty detailed policy work. We're quite surprised and pleased that we have so many visitors to this site. It has been such a success that we created the next site, So let's look at openstates.org. Each of our states in the U.S., all 50, have state legislatures modeled very much on the U.S. Congress. So we have created a site for all 50 U.S. Websites. This was done partly by volunteer scraping of the existing legislative sites that are put out by the state governments. And we scrape them, we put them into a common data format, and now we are beginning to release each state-by-state website, which combines not only the legislative information, but the campaign finance information and the blog posts about this. So they become very rich resources for both journalists and activists alike. Another site that I think would be of interest to many of you in the audience is called subsidyscope.org. So look at that slide. This is a joint project between the the Pew Charitable Trust, a grant-making foundation, and Sunlight. This was to track government subsidies in the U.S. And I have to say that our initial idea for this was to record every single government subsidy exposure grant contract that has been made, every tax expenditure. But the reporting in the U.S. is so terrible that we have been unable to do that. So we have actually done the best we can. We've examined many sectors, maybe a dozen sectors, just to get a sense of the vast scope of government expenditures that come out in the form of subsidies, and who we are subsidizing and what our priorities are. I have no slide for our mobile apps, but I mention them because our Android app called Congress, which is not a very sexy name, so if you're interested in the Congress, and a lot of people are, 500,000 people have downloaded this app. If we had anticipated that, I have to tell you, we did not anticipate that. It is used 50 to 70,000 times a week. It's hugely popular, and I think it shows that there is an audience for those apps. Let me move quickly to some of the things that we do in the money and politics arena. We've created this site called Influence Explorer. This is a one-stop shopping for really the profile of the political givers in the United States. It combines the campaign finance information for our state officials and our federal officials. It combines it with lobbying information. It combines it with appointments that some of these political givers also receive to federal advisory committees where they can argue for their particular policy. It contains a contractor misconduct list, people who have been in violation of contract laws, and a database of those who've violated environmental laws. It is fascinating as a corporate profile, particularly a corporate profile or labor union profile, of what is given and what impact it has on politics. Or the next one, which is called Polygraphed. So this takes that exact same database and allows you to paste in any news article or press release that you are reading and find the relationship between the various entities mentioned in the article. Say the president mentions a corporation. You can see whether that corporation or its individuals have given money to the president and whether that might be affecting what the president is saying, or any member of Congress or any U.S. senator. The next site is called Inbox Influence, getting ever more personal. So this site we created so that alongside your Gmail account, you can install this, and you can see the political contributions made by anyone who sends you an email through your Gmail account. When we released this site, the entire office stopped for 2 days, because everyone, it seemed, all of our friends were making political contributions, including my husband, and I was unaware of some of those. So we had some interesting dinner table discussions. But the idea here is to make information more interesting to you as a user, to make it more and more personal. That's Inbox Influence. Just two quick ones, additional. The next one is called Capital Words. This website takes the U.S. Congressional Record, which is a record of every single word that is spoken in the U.S. Capitol every single day, and allows you to sort it by member of Congress, by particular word, so you know which delegation is saying which words the most often. And it is an insightful view into what is happening in the U.S. Capitol every single day. And the last innovative site I want to show you is one called Scout, which we just released earlier this week. So this is a tool that builds on top of our other tools that allows you to create a customized search and alert system for things you are interested in that might be introduced in state legislation, in federal legislation, or in any regulation that is pending in government. And already, one of our policy director, John Wunderlich, created an alert for a section of the US code that deals with our Freedom of Information Act laws. And we saw something that was moving through Congress quickly, and the community very quickly organized to stop that piece of legislation from going through. This is a very powerful new site called Scout. The last thing I want to say is that all of the code for all of Sunlight's websites is open source and available for reuse by anyone. Thank you.
Muito obrigado, Ellen. Passar para o Silvio, para ele poder comentar um pouco do que o trabalho dele tem falado sobre isso.
Obrigado, Ronaldo. Bom dia, é um prazer estar aqui. Thanks for having me, como Ellen disse. Mas Ronaldo pediu para a gente ir, os portugueses, os falantes de portugueses, irem em português, so that will be. O que foi muito interessante a gente ver aqui é a Ellen falando de coisas inovadoras que a gente pode classificar como inovação pela definição padrão de inovação. Tem muita gente que fala de inovação em tese, e o que a gente viu foi inovação no chão acontecendo verdadeiramente. Para mim, a melhor definição de inovação, para poder responder focadamente à pergunta do Ronaldo, qual é a tecnologia para a colaboração mais inovadora que o César, e no meu caso o Porto Digital, já fizeram. Segundo Peter Drucker, inovação é a mudança do comportamento no mercado, em qualquer mercado, mesmo que seja um mercado de informação, onde não há valor monetário sendo trocado, inovação é a mudança de comportamento no mercado de agentes como fornecedores ou consumidores de qualquer coisa. Então, a gente viu exemplos bastante claros disso. No César e no Porto Digital, o César é um instituto privado, sem fins lucrativos, autossustentado, é um instituto de inovação no Porto Digital, lá em Recife, e o Porto Digital é uma rede, é um sistema local de inovação no bairro do Recife, no centro antigo da cidade do Recife, uma rede de empresas e de pessoas que nós estamos usando para recuperar o centro histórico. O objetivo final é recuperar o centro histórico do Recife e recolocar ele numa função econômica. Talvez essa seja a maior inovação que a gente esteja fazendo agora, é recriar uma rede física de suporte a um centro histórico quando a cidade foi criada em 1537. Mas olhando para tecnologias de colaboração e não para essa rede essencialmente física, nós resolvemos um tempo atrás atacar um problema crônico que nós temos no Brasil, que é a má qualidade da educação do ensino fundamental e médio, começamos pelo médio, e uma má qualidade baseada também no total desinteresse dos alunos pela escola. Como todo mundo talvez aqui já saiba, e há muito tempo, os alunos passaram pela escola, eles adquiriram uma nova linguagem, passaram não no sentido de passar por dentro, eles passaram por fora e estão à frente. Os alunos adquiriram uma linguagem tecnológica, apreenderam essa linguagem para construir conhecimento sobre outras coisas que não os objetos de interesse na escola. E essa escola, ao mesmo tempo, ela perdeu a oportunidade de, na velocidade, ou numa velocidade aproximada dos alunos, ela desenvolver essas competências linguísticas. Então, o que você acha, por exemplo, na escola hoje? Se você pegar qualquer garoto entre 10 e 12 anos no Brasil, existe uma chance muito grande que ele saiba o nome e o sobrenome do autor de Naruto, que é uma série de vídeo, é um mangá e é um conjunto de jogos que está disponível para você jogar online e nos consoles. Mas ele dificilmente sabe o nome e o sobrenome da professora de geografia dele. Esse é o caso do meu filho de 10 anos de idade, por exemplo. Ele sabe escrever o nome do autor de Naruto, que é Masashi Kishimoto, com SHI, com K e o escambau, tem 2 SHI no nome, mas ele só sabe que o nome da professora de geografia dele é Patrícia. Nem sob tortura ele revela o sobrenome dela, porque ele não sabe. Então, nós começamos a desenvolver, alguns anos atrás, no César, uma operação chamada Olimpíada de Jogos Educacionais. Isso é uma rede social de jogos extremamente lúdicos, com alta jogabilidade, baseado na mecânica tradicional de jogos como River Raid, por exemplo, Martian Attack, ou Space Invaders, e usar esses jogos para dentro dos jogos, como um processo educacional contrabandeado, a gente ensinar ou criar oportunidades de aprendizado, porque nossa tese central aí, talvez é que ninguém ensina a ninguém, as pessoas aproveitam oportunidades de aprender, criar oportunidades para aprender ótica, física, imunologia, biologia, conceitos associados à sustentabilidade ambiental, matemática e o que mais que a gente quiser. Se vocês procurarem OJE, porque é Olimpíada de Jogos Educacionais, hoje, na rede brasileira, vocês vão ver um site parecido com esses que foi mostrado aqui, mas que é só a ponta aparente de um processo de mudança que hoje já envolve centenas de milhares de adolescentes nas redes escolares de Pernambuco, aqui no Rio de Janeiro, no estado do Acre, envolve todo o sistema de educação do ensino médio e vai passar para o fundamental agora, e acabou de ser fechada uma negociação com duas grandes fundações brasileiras, para isso ir para o sistema na base, para o sistema de letramento e numeramento, o sistema de aprendizado fundamental de matemática e de português, para crianças muito jovens. Esse é um processo que deve começar a partir do sistema paulista de ensino, a partir do ano que vem. Então, olhando na prática e esquecendo todas as outras coisas que a gente fez de virtualização de instituições, de transparência, de estudo sobre urna eletrônica, assim por diante, eu acho que a coisa que maior impacto que a gente está fazendo hoje é fazer com que centenas de milhares de alunos possam usar a sua linguagem, e nosso objetivo, obviamente, são milhões, e ultimamente, em última análise, todos os alunos da rede do ensino fundamental e médio do Brasil possam usar a sua linguagem, a linguagem dos games, a linguagem das redes sociais, num processo de construção coletiva de conhecimento.
Obrigado, Silvio. Eu também sou fã de Naruto, e às vezes Naruto é mais complexo de saber do que geografia, né? Porque são tantos personagens...
867 personagens,
Exatamente.
dos quais 200 estão em ação simultânea no momento. Existe um processo de crowdsourcing, de tradução dos últimos animes de Naruto para o português. Toda quinta-feira de noite sai a versão traduzida para o português.
Para quem acha que o jovem não sabe lidar com informações complexas ou está pensando no mundo da lua, eu acho que esse é um exemplo bastante interessante. Então, Michel.
1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Yes. So I would like to start with showing the websites that I've selected. So I'm not sure where I should ask this, but if you can just show the websites that I have selected in the order that you have them, I'll speak around them. I want to start with some concrete examples. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry, I have to look at it myself. So basically, the argument that we have in the P2P Foundation is that we have a great horizontalization of human relationships. So just as we had the print revolution, which changed the epistemology, the way of knowing, so that people no longer had one institution with one truth, but they could read books with different perspectives, and they could easily spread them around, and this led to the Renaissance, Reformation, and all of that. So today we have this ability that individuals who have access to computers and the networks can not just communicate with each other, but can create value together. And they're creating very complex social artifacts and global cooperation networks. So this is one I like. It's almost like a textbook example. So this is called the Nutrient Dense Project. And you could consider them crazy people because they have this weird notion that if you put good nutrients in the soil, you get good food. So in other words, a total opposite of industrial agriculture, which depletes the soil to make food. So these people don't get subsidies. I'm sure if you would use your search engine, you would find that those kind of research is not funded because very easy to explain, Monsanto pays the politicians, so the money goes 10 times more into industrial agriculture than into organic agriculture. So what do? Well, what you do is you create a worldwide network of agriculture researchers where farmers and scientists get together and decide on research projects. And for example, you can have a biotope in Bhutan, where the Himalayas are, which is very similar to a biotope in Peru with the Andes, and they can compare nutrients in their different soils. One of the things they've done is they've scanned 3,000 manuals of agricultural manuals of organic agriculture way back from the 70s when we had the appropriate technology movement. And all those books are out of print, but you can find them online. The farmers can download them. So this is one example. If we can go to the other one. Okay, this is similar, but they work on machines. So this is a group, it's called the Young Farmers Association in the US. And they just decided to work together on their machines. So whenever they have a problem with one of their machines, they go online, they share their difficulty, and some farmer who may already have had that problem will say, well, this is how you solve your problem. And so this knowledge then travels almost instantly in the whole network of this Young Farmers Association. Okay, third example. This is the one I love the most because it's an industrial example. This is rather extraordinary. So this is, you may have heard about it, the Wikispeed open source car. So this is a car which has 100 miles per gallon fuel efficiency, 5 times more fuel efficient than the industrial cars, that can be produced in a microfactory in about a week's time, and that you can buy for $19,000, and it has a 5-star security rating. So this has been done by 80 people in 3 months. It takes Detroit 20 years to develop a car completely, and it takes them 5 years to go from, oh, should we do something different in a car, before you actually find it in the car. These people designed the whole car in 3 months, and the car is driving, and they're now doing a crowdfunding campaign to have a commuter car, because this is a sports car. So why is this important? Okay, one more thing. There's another project which is very similar, and I don't think you can show it. It's called Open Source Ecology. You may have heard about it. This is an American man called Marcin Jakubowski and a team. Over there it is. It's based in Missouri. And so the first thing he did was, okay, what kind of machinery do we need today to have a fully functioning modern village? And after developing a certain methodology, he came with the conclusion that we need about 54 different types of machinery, right? So they are developing every single type of machine in open source hardware. So you can download the design and actually make your machine in a micro factory and have it for local use. Now those two projects converge together to create something called the Extreme Manufacturing Platform. And this is what I call the Henry Ford moment of physical peer production. Why? The world we live in really came into being when Henry Ford developed the linear assembly, right? It's when he divorced knowledge from the workers, put them in a certain place, doing the same thing all over again all day long, and in a linear process. And this created mass production, overproduction, therefore marketing, advertising, and everything we know today in the mass consumption. Now, if you look at Wikipedia, what's one of the things that's interesting about Wikipedia is that you have massive, parallel, distributed development of every line in the Wikipedia all the time by any person in the world. Imagine that you could use this methodology and transfer it to design. This is what they did. So the Extreme Manufacturing Platform is a methodology for massive distributed development of every line of design and code for these 54 machines and the cars being produced by Wikispeed. So this is really, really important innovation. And as I understand it, Brazil is maybe having some temporary difficulties now with the crisis, but overall you have this development phase, right? But we have also to be aware that the age of resource abundance and energy abundance is coming to its end. So that doesn't mean everything will disappear from day one, but it means that we're going from energy abundance to restraint, to eventually even scarcity. This means we have to transform our vision from economies of scale, which means producing more of a thing to be more competitive, to economies of scope, which means doing more with less. And this is a new method where we scale up from one. So if you want a car from Wikispeed, you order your car, the garage downloads the design, makes the car with a new type of machinery called 3D printing machinery, CNC milling machines. So that we are developing now a whole series of machines that lower the capital requirements for production. So the efficiencies of scale are going lower and lower and lower, no longer just in the material sphere. That's why we have the internet, and we have BitTorrent, which was created by one man who had no money, and created the most important software for the internet. So now we have efficiencies of scale are going downwards to systems which can scale up from one. Printing on demand, manufacturing on demand, locally, but the important thing is global cooperation, right? Global intellectual, cultural, scientific cooperation using the networks. Okay, the second point, which is important, is that this is also a new economic system. The system that we know is the following. We think that value is created in the private sphere by either labor, if you're left-wing, or entrepreneurs, if you're liberal. And this is where we think the value is created. But if we look at this new system, this is not where the value is created. The value is created in the commons, right? Shared knowledge, shared code, and shared design. So the code and the design is located, is universally available for all humanity to use. So that's where the value is contributed to, and that's where the value is created. A second player comes into play, and it's pretty much systematic. So if you look at the free software economy, which has, according to a report in the US, is now 1/6 of GDP in the US economy. It's called the Fair Use Report. Open knowledge and open software together. So we are creating something new, which is called a for-benefit association, right? The Apache Foundation, the Wikimedia Foundation, what they do is they make sure that people can have a commons, they can cooperate on the commons. So for example, the Wikimedia Foundation does fundraising so that the Wikipedia has servers and can finance its servers. Okay, this is the question actually you asked. So what about the entrepreneurs? Well, the third player is the entrepreneurial coalition. The people who create value on top of the commons for the market. But this is where it's interesting. And I know this is a radical hypothesis, but I think I'm right in this. Business cannot do sustainable design. Structurally. If you design for the market, you design for scarcity, right? There is a lamp in Los Alamos which has been burning since 105 years. Can you find that lamp in the market? No. Why? Because any company which would make a thing that will last 100 years would basically be bankrupt before it starts, right? It would undercut its own market position. Why does big oil doesn't like renewable energy? Because if they invest in renewable energy, that means they won't use the oil in the soil, and their market value goes down, right? So what we need is, if we do the design in the commons, if a community does the design, it's sustainable by default, right? Because if you design a machinery for the global, here, what is it again called? The global village construction set, why would you make it a bad design? Why would you make a fridge which breaks down after 5 years? It doesn't make any sense. You want to make a fridge which is modular, so anybody can contribute to the design. You want to use a biodegradable kind of plastic or something. So this is another example called the Common Source car. It's a Dutch project. Every 3 years, you go to the garage and you change the body of your car. Fully biodegradable, 100% cradle to cradle. Another example is the e-cars now, a Finnish project which has global distribution, and they are making conversion engines. So basically you bring your Toyota Civic, I think that was the first design that they finished. you bring it to your mechanic on Friday night, Monday morning, you have a hybrid car. Because the mechanic has downloaded design, who knows how to convert your car. So you see that when a community designs, it thinks differently, right? It thinks differently in terms of design, it is sustainable, and it thinks in terms of distributed capital, lowering the threshold of inclusion so that maximum number of people can participate. So this means that if you have companies working with a commons, they already behave differently because their design is already sustainable, right? So this is still a market system, but it's not a system which is driven by capital accumulation, but it's actually driven by the logic of the commons. So I think this is really what we need. And this is, and then I'll finish, because I can go on. So the P2P Foundation is, you know, I'm a bit shy because I cannot do the same as Ellen. I cannot show what we do because we are people who talk about what other people are doing. So basically we are an observatory, but we are organized in the same way. And if you ask something we do innovative, I have one example, is we pay ourselves in Bitcoin, which some of you may know. So this is a global, peer-to-peer, globally scalable digital currency. And when we pay our salaries, because we have people in Colombia, in Argentina, in Barcelona, instead of paying 4% bank transfer rates, we use from 5 to 50% of our salaries in Bitcoin. And then one more thing. An interesting project that I think you may find interesting. So we just got funding for a 3-year project in Germany to create a shadow democracy project. Now, as you may know, the pirates, which is the first political expression of the digital culture, the digital commons, this is where these people come from, the music sharing communities, who have now 10% of the vote in Germany in 5 states, and they're the #1 party for young people between 18 and 35. They use a very innovative democratic system internally, which is called liquid feedback, which you may have heard about. It's called proxy voting. Now, the kind of democracy we have now is a batch processing, right? It means every 4 years you decide on one candidate, and why do you vote for him or her? Because you agree with him 30%, but the other one you only agree 10%. But that means that 70% of who you are is not represented, right? It's one batch. You have to make one decision every so many years. Now, the liquid feedback system is a system whereby you can always vote directly, or you can delegate your vote to an expert. So what we want to do is to create a shadow democracy. What does it mean? We're going to reproduce the institutions of representative government, which are no longer working in my book, and we're going to show this is what happens when real people choose, right? So why are you choosing that way if you know that the majority of the people are choosing that way if they had a voice? So I think if we succeed in doing that, that will be a very innovative project. Thank you.
Thank you, Michel.